Jermaine Hopgood is the man of the hour. Unfortunately, he's been benched this week. Lockie, what's your initial reaction to that one?
My initial reaction is wait and see. I think Carty Party might be drawing to an end instead. With Paulo out, I think he has to still play quite a big role. If he doesn't get good minutes this week, however, he probably won't get them when Paulo does come back, and then you can move him on after that. But for now, I'm holding strong. I've got other things to deal with first.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's obviously pretty expensive now. He's up into the price into the 50s, which is obviously good if we are deciding to trade him on. But someone who most likely I'd say at this point isn't going to play Origin unless he continues to play amazingly well. He's a great player, but he still has a lot of errors in his game in terms of those missed tackles in important moments and stuff like that. So I can't see him making that, which I know a lot of people are trying to use that as the excuse to move him on. So Carty's definitely that guy I think you need to move on either this week or next. Like, he's got that start now, and we may as well speak about him now as well. But yeah, I think he's the guy to move on before Hopgood. And really, as you said, this week it's probably 50 plus minutes, isn't it? 50 to 55, you'd say.
Yeah, I'd say that for sure. Because Rumor-Grig's not going to play a lot of minutes. He played 30 last week, and that's the most he's played in his career by a lot. I think Hopgood's still in for a good 50 to 60 minutes.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, let's go to Carty then. What are your general thoughts on him?
My general thoughts are that he might score okay this week, but his money making's pretty much over. That 34 last week means his break-even's popped up to pretty close to what he'll score this week. He might make you, I don't know, another 10 or 15k this week, maybe. But I really think as a scorer in your main team, he's not going to be that 80-minute guy from now on, and it's a good week to move on.
Do you expect 80 this week?
Some people say he might, depending on how much time Hopgood spends in the middle rotation with Paulo out. I probably don't think he does. I think he'll go to lock and Manu will go to edge a little bit, at least for some of the game.
Yep.
So I don't expect Carty to play more than probably about 60 minutes.
Okay, so a little bit of a risk if you want to play him. They are up against the Tigers though, so even like with Hopgood, for example, I see him coming on and playing 50 minutes, and when he comes on in that time, 10, 15 minutes before half ends, he's going to have so much energy in the offloads and tackle breaks and potential try assists and stuff that he could bring to this side. I think he can score 50 odd anyway in at least a point a minute there. So Carty could do the same though. So have him as even if he's like you're going to try and loop and you loop one of these other guys that plays earlier in the week, and then Carty's like your fallback. If your loop doesn't work, then you can play Carty and hope for I think he's going to have a wide range at 30 to 60 or something like that for Carty Party this week. So, a little bit of an interesting one with Hopgood, Carty there. You've got Doorey as well, and then potentially Madison in the fray. There's all these guys you're looking at to trade, holds, or potentially buy with Madison there as well. So that's that. Let's move to Mr. James Tedesco. Very, very sad times for him. Really a gun player each and every year, and this year has come out and has a high score of 46 with a bye in there, a concussion, and then another week off here. It couldn't really get any worse for Teddy owners, could it?
No, not really. It's a real conundrum now. It's a little bit like Haas last year. He's lost so much money now that do you sell and basically confirm those losses and hope he doesn't lose more, or do you wait for him to pop back up? I probably think if you have a half-decent wing fullback, you can probably hold him, because the Roosters did look a lot better coming out of the bye. They'd fixed a few issues in the week off, and before Teddy went off, he was scoring quite well anyway. What did he get? 19 in 24 minutes. That's pretty good scoring. So I think he'll go back to scoring well, but the thing is, Origin is starting to get closer and closer, and it's a really tough spot to be in if you're a Teddy owner right now.
Yeah, so let's put the scenario out there. If you have Lockie Miller, you have Khan Pereira, who you've held, and you have Will Warbrick, and they're your three this week. You have Teddy as well. Do you think it's okay to hold him and then just have him from next week? Because really, there's a lot of people that are going to look to buy him either next week or the week after, right? And have him for that 5 or 6 game run into Origin.
Yeah, I think if you've got Miller and 2 cheapies, you can probably get away with it. If you've got somebody else as well, like a Walsh and a Turbo instead as a second wing fullback, even with Teddy out, I think you can 100% hold him, because you're not going to really suffer too much if Warbrick drops a 15 this week, like he did a couple of weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because if you have the Walsh and Turbo and you have Teddy as well, and maybe a couple other those guys like the Warbricks and Campereras, those type of guys, then maybe that is a way you can sell him and just go, I've got enough guns at the moment. Teddy will play Origin. I'm going to have Turbo as well that will be playing Origin. Do I want, can I get a better score in another position? Do I need to, do I need a better hooker? Do I need to go straight to Brailey? There's questions like that. I think you could play it that way. But definitely, I think there's no clear answers to what you do with him. Have it based on your team and where it's at there. Let's move to Scoop's team. That's our next cab off the rank there. So another good score, mate. I did beat you by 4, so a little bragging rights there. We were tied up until updates, which is really cool. 1,060 for the both of us. And moving up the ranks. Great work this week. 1,661 is your overall rank. Give us a little thought on the team and possibly where you're going to go from here. And how many trades do you have left?
I have saved 2 trades. I've got 30 before this week.
Beautiful.
I'm in a little bit of an interesting spot because Sexton was named in the halves for the Titans this week, so that makes Boyd a little easy to sell in my opinion, but he does have that momentum, so that's going to be the key point for my team this week, whether I cash out Trindle and Boyd to fund a Brailey and a Nikorima. That'd probably be the 2 trades I made if I do. But yeah, as it stands, Tarpanay was a little disappointing last week when Murray went huge, but the Raiders got belted and he was standing under the posts watching the goals most of the time. His offloads were back though, which I was really keen to look at. I don't think I'm going to chase Hines with how well Johnson's doing. I don't know if I need that other third gun half when there's still a little bit of chance that he'll get into Origin as well. At the moment, I'm really looking to bring in Tedesco, as you were saying. If it hadn't been for his head injury, I would have brought him in this week probably. But yeah, I might just have to rock Sloan and Warbrick there for another 2 weeks.
Yeah, how lucky was that Sloan last 15 minutes for you, wasn't it?
Oh, I was cheering. He was on like so 6 points at halftime or something.
Yeah, he's just on 4 for most of the game, right? So that was a really good game for owners of Bird and Sloan. That was massive for you guys there, so it worked out great. All right, so you'd potentially, if you're trading out Boyd, that leaves you with Katoa as your third half, and you'd be fine with that for the moment?
Yeah, for the moment. I think with O'Sullivan out and Milford out, he'll take a bit more responsibility. Nikorima can kick, but he's not a massive kicker. So I think both him and Katoa could score sort of mid to high 30s from now on for a while. And I'm perfectly happy with that at their prices.
Beautiful. All right, we'll speak about Nikorima in a sec. But yeah, overall team's looking pretty solid, mate, especially just saving that couple of trades. You'll probably look to go pretty hard over the next few weeks, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. If I'm going to bring in another half, I think it will be Dewey because he'll lose some more cash this week, but he's back in the halves and hopefully that failed experiment doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think 600k Dewey in about 2 weeks will be very juicy after the bye.
Beautiful. So with him, you wouldn't tell anyone to look to buy him this week?
Not this week. He lost 60k last week and I think his break-even's probably like 70 or 80 or something really high.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait, and especially because Tigers buys next week, wait 2 weeks and then pick him up.
Beautiful. Okay, Lindsay Smith is the next guy on our list. He had a absolute cracker. He got pumped a lot, but just kept coming back in the fight there. Plenty of base stats, had a try saver and a try assist. I see him as only having 1 week. What do you see with him?
Yeah, it's tough because we don't have a massive certainty on what the timeline is for Fisher Harris, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, Matt Eisenhuth coming in to start was what I probably expected. Yep. It happened a little bit with Spencer Lenu last year. We thought, oh wow, Leota and Lenu might benefit. I think when it was similar problem last year when Penrith missing middle forward.
A couple of times.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it didn't really affect Lenu, and I think it won't affect Lindsay Smith so much. I think he'll continue to get like similar minutes, but I don't expect what that looks like about 1.6 ppm with a couple of extra stats that he usually won't get. I think he's probably going to make money for a couple of weeks, but I don't think he'll be there for long enough to make 150k.
I just think if Liam Martin comes back next week, even if it's just one of them, him or Garner, then Sorensen just goes back to the bench and takes Smith's spot.
Yeah.
Unless they
quite
start
possibly.
Sorensen and get rid of Eisenhuth. But Eisenhuth as a starter playing sort of 50 minutes, I think is why he's in there, and they'd rather use these guys as impact. So he could definitely get a couple of weeks, but I'm scared, and I think that it'll be a big risk that he would only get 1 week, and he's at 350. If he was 250, you'd probably take more of a risk with him, I'd say. Sele, 298k, so a little bit of a better price for us. His break-even's not crazy high because he's got a lovely -2 in his score there, but a -2, a 41 in 47 minutes. How do you see the minutes for him going forward? We do have guys like Havili eventually coming back, but still a bunch of weeks away. What do you think of Hame?
Yeah, I was really, really keen on him until I saw Totola named in the team sheet. I thought that he wasn't going to be back until about round 8, and I was hoping for those 2 weeks of boosted minutes to really kick him off. I still think he'll make decent money. I think it's just that it's going to be a slow burn now. So if he gets sort of 35, 40 minutes and scores you 30 to 35 for the next 6 weeks, then he'll crawl up to sort of mid 400s. But it won't be a really fast moneymaker now, in my opinion. He's cheaper, though, than Blore and Lindsay Smith. So if you don't have the cash, you can definitely stick him in. And he will cover round 13 and 14.
That's very helpful for sure. And then, by then you'd be ready to move him on. So really, the biggest thing with him, as you said, is it's a slower burn. Really, you're probably using him as a cash down who can score okay for you. Probably not playing him in your 17 unless you have some suspensions and injury worries. And I agree with you that 30 to 33, 35 would be probably his number. So if you're using him as a cash down from like Cartwright or something like that, so you can free up cash for Nico or something like that, I think it's going to work out okay. All right, let's talk about Cody Nikorima because we've got a lot more of a sample size with him than a lot of these guys. And at 254k, break even isn't crazy after his, it does drop down a fair bit after his 0 in round 2. He got a 34 in that first one. So thankfully, if you're looking to pick him up this week, that 0 has helped you out instead of him making a fair bit of money in round 4 there. Your general thoughts are as a potential buy, right? What are you basing this on? Just, what are we thinking? 3 to 4 weeks and has a bit of a history of scoring okay in that halfback position?
Yeah, both at 5/8 and halfback, he's sort of scored about the same, around 40 points. Adjusted for the new kick meters, it's high 30s. And I'm just a little tiny bit worried with the inconsistent reporting with Milford's injury. One place on the NRL site said 3 to 4 weeks, and the other said it out at least a month. So I'll definitely be keeping a little bit more of an eye on that. But if he's scoring you about 40 points for 4 weeks, he'll make you good coin and potentially level out his break even with a few more price rises from the bench in the week after that. A little bit like Trindle, except he'll actually play instead of sitting on the bench the whole game.
That's true. That's very true there with Cody. So what do you think? Worst case scenario, probably 3 weeks played and 100k? Or about 80k?
Yeah, maybe a little bit lower, but it depends how well the Dolphins go without Sean O'Sullivan and a couple of injuries. I think he'll still score okay because, well, if they're under pressure, they might need to do a little bit more kicking, and that might boost those points, might reduce attacking points. I think he'll still score pretty well. And as a cash down, really good. As a cash cow, probably pretty good. And out of the options that are left, he's one of the best.
And he's the cheapest, right? So you can clearly understand why people are going for him. A risk, but at 250, not the biggest risk in the world, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Michael Cheekam, we happy just to pack him up, send him on, send him away on that nice holiday after his cracking start, making a couple 100k?
Yeah, the one that got away for a few of us, and whoever picked him up has done fantastically well. Yeah, he's coming to the end of his tenure. His break-even is a bit higher now, like Carty. Totola's back, and that means Kolomatangi will actually play more edge now instead of in the middle, and it will just squeeze Cheekam slowly away. And yeah, it's time to move him on, I think.
Yeah, being out this week, and then guys like Arrow to return, I think it's time to go. So you've done great with him, and the break-even's getting slightly higher, considering he had that big score in the first one, and then he just slowly dropped it from there. But a 36 is lowest. Really, really good efforts, and well done if you picked him up. Use that cash elsewhere now. Perfect. Brycey Cartwright, we mentioned him. We'll move on from him there. But yeah, 527k is great news for us as owners. Still made that 30-odd last week. Could score well this week if you want to hold him, but also a solid trade. Mitchy Moses, a lot of people are looking to move him on. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do that. He scored great and is a borderline keeper in the halves most years anyway, and he scored a 39. That's not terrible. They just finished their really tough run of Storm Sharks, Manly, Panthers, Roosters. Now they've got their easy run of, or easier run of Tigers, Bulldogs, Broncos, Knights, Gold Coast Raiders, and stuff like that. So he'll go to work and do a little bit more. I think Lane potentially might see it going left more to Dylan Brown. So maybe he won't get those gigantic kick meter stats like he did the other week. But I mean, he's still going to score you keeper level scores and be very handy through the Origin period.
Yeah, and you're looking at 2 scores above 70. There's people that trust trying to sell him because of how well Cleary went, and then he's coming off a 39. Like, everyone reacts like that. Whereas last week he got the 72, and everyone was like, trade him in. You know, 4 weeks ago he was 77. They said the same thing. So Moses averaging 57.6, and we know him as the flat track bully. So really, I think it's silly to trade him out. Obviously, there's guys like Johnson who are doing great things. So there's a lot of halves doing well, but you can't have them all. But I think having 3 gun halves is going to be an easy way. If you do have Moses, you could have Cleary and Johnson. You could have Hines and Johnson. You can have Sammy Walker and Cleary. Like, there's so many different options you can do there. But with him having a bye in round 14, I think it's silly just to pump Hines and Cleary in your team from Moses, who's scoring well, when they're going to be out most likely anyway. Do you think that they'll play Hines in some capacity?
I think with Pappenhausen almost completely out of the picture,
Yeah.
I think with how well Hines is going again this year, I think they have to at least put him on the bench, or it's going to be much harder to leave him out this year than last year, particularly with a little bit of fall off of guys in the 5/8 spot. Like, Whiten hasn't looked that great this year. Luai hasn't done quite as well, with Penrith not the massive juggernaut like last year, but still a good team. I think there's much more chance he does get into Origin now than last year.
That's fair. I think he's more chance of playing 6 than 14. I just see Whiten playing 14 again. He's so good in Origin. He's so much better at Origin player than he is for the Raiders. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think either way, it's going to be worth the 6 weeks, right, for Heinze?
Yeah, well, he's going to score very well, possibly better than Cleary, but at this stage, when he's worth a whole cash cow more than Cleary at over $1 million, it is going to be tough to bring him in. If you do need a gun second half, I would do that. If you have another good option like Moses or Sean Johnson there already, it's not as urgent.
Definitely. Pat Carrigan is the next guy on our list. What are your general thoughts on him? Last week was obviously just a clear attacking raid when he only had 12 tackles. What are your thoughts on him? Would you trade him out, or would you be happy to hold him with a slightly higher break even?
Yeah, I'm happy to hold him. If you've got him and Haas, you're probably going to sell Carrigan when it comes to round 13. So I would probably trade him out then. If you're going to trade him out at all, I wouldn't do it this week. The Tigers got absolutely belted, and like a few people last week, like with Tarpanay, he played, but he just stood watching goals or attacking and not defending and getting those tackle numbers up.
Yeah, and he was trying to offload a lot. He had 4 offloads, two to hand, 2 to ground, but 160 meters. He was definitely involved in everything. It was just 12 tackles, 2 misses, and he's usually a guy that's going to get you 30 odd. He had 50 in the first game. If there's going to be closer games, especially after having a bit of a rest last week, I think him and Haas could play bigger minutes if the Raiders come out and play really well. So I get it. I get why you're looking at it, but I think you are reacting to a 35 when a lot of other guys did well. He was someone in the first few weeks, I was so sad that I didn't own him. He was priced at 50 coming into this year, guys. And every single one of those first 4 scores, he beat 50. So one bad game. Like people were looking to trade Murray out after one bad game, and you saw what happened with him. So yeah, definitely go with caution. But again, at 735, I'd be trading Hopgood out before I trade Carrigan. I don't know.
Yep.
There you go. Hot takes. Zach Hosking. So we've had the 1 week. We got the big price rise from him. 607K now. There's at least this week in him, maybe next week as well, and then you could just have him long term. If you don't own him now, would you bring him in now with the chance of only 1 week, or would you wait, see what happens this week? If he clearly wins that spot, he's probably going to be a keeper long term, and you get him at what, 660, which is still under that 50 price, and you can make some money on him and turn into a keeper. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit annoying because we thought we'd get the answer this week, but Martin and Garner are again nowhere to be seen, which is a bit of a surprise. If you don't have him, I would tend to go after somebody else this week and just for safety reasons pick him up next week. But if you do want to take that risk, you can definitely bring him in this week instead before that price rises. But yeah, it was probably better to do it last week if you're going to take that risk. Now it's just more money and the risk still there. So
yeah. Good call. Good call. All right, Harley Smith-Shields, very sad one this week. Thankfully, our people squad did not play him. Yay. For 273k. Do you try and sell him now before he loses a bit more cash? Especially, actually, he's not even playing this week. We've got Jared Croker. So welcome back to Jared. Very happy that he gets a crack. But yeah, would you just trade him out in general?
Yeah, I think so. He sort of looked like he's going to be a bit of a slow burn that wasn't going to make too much money, but wasn't going to lose money. But then he just dropped a 4 on us and he's completely ruined it. He's done as a cash cow, and he's not even playing. So yeah, move him on.
Pretty sad that in 5 games he couldn't even get close to a try or an assist. Playing as centre, that's pretty tough. So it's pretty unlucky, guys. Like, you've seen what he was able to do in 2021. In really a low score of 25 in that one, and scored a couple, set up a couple as well. So wasn't to be this year. Raiders just weren't the team to start this year that we thought they might be. Didn't work out. So yeah, you could move him on. Would you straight swap him for a cash cow? So one of those other cashies that are cheaper than him or about the same price, or would you look to just straight upgrade him to a gun center?
If you have spare bank, I would definitely look to upgrade him to a gun center. However, you might not have the money to do that. So if you don't, you can make, the 20k to go down to Nikorima, for example. Or if you've got just a little bit more, you might want to make use of Pereira's really low break even.
Beautiful. Just saw there, Harley Smith-Shields, 38 of the top 100 own him.
Wow.
So there you go. That's a good thing that they haven't made much bank on him, which is nice for our team value, which is very important. I'm sure there. What's your team value there, Lockie?
It's currently 11.87, I think.
Okay, so yeah, pretty solid at the moment. Anything close to that 12 mark, I think, is good. So very nice. Jackson Ford, what would you do with him if you don't own him this week? He's owned by 88% of the top 5,000 at 418k. That 43 is pretty safe regularly, hey?
Yeah, when you're sort of a little bit disappointed by a 43 and he's priced at 400k, that's a good cash cow. Yeah. And a 40 average, you'd get him close to 600, sort of mid 500, and there's still that 150k to make. And he's got that dual, can potentially play round 13, 14 if he's still in your team by then. I'd definitely jump on if you don't have him.
Yeah, he's going to be very easy to cover in round 12, right? Probably have a couple of guys out, him and Johnson or something like that. So that's going to be completely fine. Good cash cow. I'm glad we started with him and held him, that's for sure. Reece Walsh. So, would you straight swap Tedesco for Walsh if you didn't have him? There's one question. Second question, would you upgrade one of those 350, 450k type of guys that you're ready to move out of your side to a Walsh and really shore up your wing fullback position? And do we think that he could make Origin?
As for straight swapping him for Teddy, I don't know. That's a very tough decision to make. I probably wouldn't, but he can definitely pay off this week. This next 2 weeks, he's got some fantastically easy opponents. And honestly, last week I was surprised he didn't go really massive. To be honest, he looked on track for a really good score, and then in updates they brought him down a whole 10 points. So if he doesn't get that week on week, he could be in for some really good scores. But after that, he does have a tough run into Origin. The last month before Origin's Rabbits, Manly, Melbourne, and Penrith. So there is an argument to be made that with him potentially being the Queensland fullback, with Ponga still not back yet, not really fit yet, that he will play Origin. You might have to trade him out. So if you have him, keep holding him. He's scoring well. He's doing nothing wrong. If you don't have him, you can bring him in, especially for the next couple of weeks, but you probably not going to be as good as you might hope.
Yeah, he's kind of someone that's I'm flirting between having him and not. He's still not highly owned. 17 of the top 100, 26 of the top 5,000. The other one that's of interest for the Queensland fullback spot will be AJ Brimson when he does come back. I think he deserves that spot, and I think defensively and stuff he'll be better than Walsh, and he's shown what he can do in the Origin arena. So that's a very interesting one. Let's talk about Greg Marzhew. Very interesting player at 6'28", coming off a 78 and a 69 to kick off the year. The Knights actually haven't been as bad as we thought they might be over the last few weeks, especially. Next 3 run, Warriors, Penrith, Cowboys. They have a bye after the next 4 rounds. So would you pick Greg now or hold off on him and just let him fly by?
Yeah. The thing is, you're paying $628K for a winger. That's more than what Teddy is currently. And look, he scores really well, but he has shown some defensive frailties. And we've seen that the Knights aren't afraid to drop their wingers if they're underperforming. Dom Young disappeared for a week and then came back because Hunt was injured. Maybe Marzhew doesn't get in like at the beginning of the year when Hunt was preferred over him. I'm not too sure what happens. Scoring fantastic, and if he stays in the team, he could be a fantastic guy. Like, he could be that keeper winger this year. But to be honest, I think he's more of a super coach buy with the way the price changes work than a fantasy buy, particularly as it doesn't score as well for the tries and try assists and line breaks.
Yeah, well, he's already gone up about 70k, hasn't he? And he would be the super pod of all pods because no one owns him at all, pretty much in the top 5,000. So it's a big risk. Could pay off. You could make about 100k, but we did also see what happened with girls like Talakai last year. Had a couple of crackers and then came back down to earth. So that's Greg there. If you were going to go for a gun wing fullback winger, would you be going for Karaz or Garrick instead?
Oh, it's a tough one because I've been trying to bring in a wing fullback this week because I can't bring in Teddy, and I'm really stuck on who to get. Karaz looks fantastic. He's getting those massive tackle busts and meters and stuff like Marzhew, but his spot is probably safer. Yep. So if you wanted to bring in a winger, Karaz would probably be the one to do it. Marzhew's good if he can keep the spot. But yeah, at the moment, I might just hold off on the wing fullbacks because they're all sort of in that really annoying price, and it's starting to get a little bit closer to Origin when that factors in a bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about Jaden Campbell, who I haven't put on my screen yet, but I'll pop him up at 413k. It sounds like Brimson was going to be about a month, which means that he's had the 1 week off now. It's probably 3 weeks for Campbell. What would you be doing with Jados at the moment at that awkward price?
He can score those 45, 50 points, but he won't make any money this week as a result. So he's really only got a week less money making than you'd expect. So Brimson, I think, was 4 to 6 weeks. Now he's only got 3 to 5. So realistically, you've only got 2 to 4 weeks for Jaden Campbell to make money. And 4 weeks is probably the minimum you'd want him to be making money. And I think it's a little bit too much of a risk. Great draft pickup for the next month or so, but yeah, probably not for Classic.
Beautiful. I completely agree with that. Let's go with Shawnee Blore now. 334k. Is it a little bit too high of a price to pick him up with a negative break even and an awesome score last week? Can he back it up with probably slightly less minutes?
Yeah, it's a little bit tough because Bateman's playing a bit of middle, Blore's doing well, but it's the Tigers. They're doing all sorts of interesting things with their rotations. I think you can potentially jump on if you need a cash down and you want a little bit of guaranteed money, but I don't know if he's going to get you up to that 150k. I can definitely see 75 or 100 just riding a couple of medium scores off that really low break even, but I don't know whether he'll get to exactly where you want near that 500k mark. He got, 27 in 55 minutes a couple of weeks ago compared to 61 in 58 minutes. So as a bench edge, they're always risky. He's one of the better options. I'm probably not going to get him though.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So team, Scoop just came across some news about Toby Rudolph. Unfortunately, it looks like he's going to be out for 3 months there. MTP joint there, is that right, in his foot? Not in a good way. So he just had surgery, and it looks like we might have some potential options in that Sharks pack. But I think we really do have to wait a week potentially, just for the fact that there's so many middles there. They got Oregon Kafusi. There's McInnes that's probably going to be the bigger beneficiary. Guys like Royce Hunt have lost a fair bit of cash as well. So there's a few options there. Lockie, you were talking about potentially McInnes obviously losing a fair bit of cash as not being a buy, but this might improve his chances.
Yeah, well, I had McInnes as benefiting from when Finucane was out last year. That happened a fair bit, and that's why his price was so high to begin with. But yeah, he's going to fall a little bit more this week. His break even's still very high. But if he pushes up to that like 55, 60 minutes like he usually did with Finucane out last year, he can get that 50 average where he was before. So particularly with that 50 minutes from Rudolph missing and needing to be shouldered by somebody, he could potentially consolidate his minutes. And I think he actually might be an interesting buy going forward.
He just hasn't, like the first couple of games, it looked like he was trying probably a little bit too hard. Like he had a few errors in his game and stuff, and it hasn't even been scoring that well in his usual minutes. So hopefully he just goes kind of back to more of that, just that middle forward, just getting into his work. But yeah, definitely probably can wait that week. And with Finucane out too, you at least would see one more week with him in that role in the 13, and then he probably moves to that middle rotation. Yeah, it could be some more minutes for some other guys, but definitely something to have a look at this week for sure. Let's talk about Jaden Brailey now. He lost another 10k this week, even with a nice score in the 50s there, 52. So he's got 3 50s, 51, 59, 52, and his low score of a 5. He's priced pretty low now in that sort of low to mid 40s. What are your thoughts on Brailey? Is he a potential in for your team?
Yeah, definitely, because he is an interesting counter to Grant. He complements Grant with the buys because he plays round 13 and has his buy in round 14 when Grant will be back. And so he will get that coverage over those first 2 bye weeks. I think he and the rest of the Knights have a pretty decent buy schedule through Origin after that. So you'll get reasonably good coverage out of Brailey as well, and probably a 50 or a low 50s average. If you're looking for quick cash, he won't do it. He'll slowly climb back up towards that 700k mark. But as a borderline keeper, especially in mid-season when Grant, Cook, and maybe even Robson, it depends who they pick, will be out, he's going to be a very solid scorer for you in the hook position.
Yeah, if you can bank on one of these guys that's going to make a bit of cash and score you low 50s pretty comfortably, and maybe some attacking stats, which he hasn't had at all yet. If he scores a try or gets an assist or something, he could sneak up into the 60s, 70s. So definitely plenty of upside on Brailey, and not very highly owned for someone that is very safe. I think he's a good buy. Connolly Lemuelu, would you still look to pick him up at 477? A slightly lower score last week. He probably gets a little bit better than that, considering his highest missed tackles was 3 before this week. He had 9. And I still can't believe they took away that turnover tackle, which was so clear. But what are your thoughts on Connolly going forward?
Yeah, I didn't realize he missed so many tackles. I was a little bit disappointed, but all of the main stats were there. I think it's just the fact that they had to do more defending than they've used to in the first month because, well, with O'Sullivan out and Milford getting injured, they haven't been able to attack as fluently or be as consistent. I think that could be very good for his base going forward. It might be increase his tackles. But yeah, that missed tackles is a little bit worrying. Because he's slowed his money making now with that 36, I'd potentially look to wait until Kafusi's back because it's not that far now. And I reckon you can just see whether it's going to continue going forward with his sort of 40, 45 level scores.
For sure. And he's getting closer to a few guys like Isaiah Tass and these sort of mid 500s guys. So yeah, I'd probably potentially go up to them at this point. That missed tackles number is really strange because he's got games at center and off the interchange where his highest is 3 and 4. So very much an outlier, I think, on that one. So hopefully he'll bounce back and he can get back into the 40s. And I think he will. He should be fine going forward with that. Okay, most people have Isaiah Katoa. I don't. And can you talk me into buying him or potentially talk me out of buying him this week? I think he's 66% owned overall and 85 of the top 100, 77% of the top 5,000. Can you see him making a decent amount of money?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, last week, he scored 32, and the Dolphins kind of got flattened by the Dragons when Milford also went down. He had a try assist, but most importantly, he kicked for a lot of meters, and I think that'll continue. SOS and Milford are generally big kickers. Nikorima kicks a bit, but isn't really as dominant. So I think those high kick meters and base will continue. He just needs to clean up a couple of missed tackles to really push him towards the high 30s rather than the low to mid 30s. So I think he's still a great buy. He's priced very low still, 277k. I think he definitely has that 150k still in him.
Yeah, it seems like I've got fairly lucky that I didn't own him. He hasn't really done too much to kind of kill me at this point. I think started at 230, was he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 47 made, not too bad, and I could still pick him up when it's kind of suiting us a little bit better. So that's worked out for me. Probably the way I'm going to go. He has not had one tackle break yet, so surely he gets a sneaky 1 or 2 there over the next bunch of weeks, just when I start bringing him in, right? He's going to get involved more as well. Okay, so the Faasuamaleaui brother, Isaac, with his funky name there. I was trying to type it in and I couldn't find him. I was doing ISS-IZ. We got there ISZAK for Isaac there. 253k. Didn't play last week, but scored really well the week before. Is him not playing last week a little bit of an issue in this Titans pack, or do you see him as being a bit of a mainstay going forward now they have Haas coming in as well?
Nah, hang on. I think they had the bye last week, so that might be what happened there. But yeah, I think he might be a little bit of a mirage because he had 48 minutes in that round 4 game. That was when Brimson and Foran went down within 90 seconds of each other. So potentially they had to shift. Well, Campbell would have gone to fullback, and potentially they would have had to shift somebody to half, and I reckon something probably had to give in the forward. One of the edges probably had to play a bit of centre like Stimson, and that would have thrown all of the middle rotations out and increased his minutes. I think he'll score okay going forward, but I don't see his ceiling or his scoring to be as consistent or as high as somebody like Isaiah Katoa or Cody Nikorima.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair thing to say. Jackie John's there, 354. He had a cracker last week, and so he's had a game in round 2, played 41 minutes, the same that he did last week, got 27 points, and then got a 58 last week, which was crazy. He played really, really well. Can you see somewhere in between, or would you expect somewhere closer to that 27 like he got in round 2?
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting because now he's up around that 350k mark. He's a little bit tougher to get into your team if you wanted to make cash, but he's pushed his break even down and is on a roll. I don't know when Elliott's coming back. That's a little bit of concern, when he's going to play some lock and potentially push his minutes down, but he's not really playing massive minutes anyway. He could continue getting close to 40 off the bench. And I would expect him to go closer to that 35-40 score in the middle rather than 27. He had 4 missed tackles in that 27 and only 1 last week. So I think he's a decent option, but he's only listed at edge, and I've got enough edges, so I'll probably look for somebody else unless he gets that duel very shortly.
Yeah, is it after round 6 or before?
I think it's after round 6. I would have to double check that, but if he does pick up the mid duel, he'll become a lot more valuable. A little bit like a poor man's Jackson Ford, for example.
Very, very fair. But yeah, just at all good price, isn't it? Reed Mahoney, we need to speak about him. A few people looking to sell him. He started super well, 71.54. He's gone 48.38. Thoughts?
He's an interesting one because his base is really, really good. He's got 40 tackles or 40 plus tackles and usually 2, 3, 4 points in kick meters. He's got the platform to be a really good hooker, but the thing is his negatives. I think he got like minus 24, minus 26 in negatives last week, which took him from almost a 60 score to 38 potentially. So I think you can probably hold him, but if you really wanted to get on Jaden Brailey, you could save 100k there and do that. I think it's just a little bit annoying if you own him and you can just hope that he gets a bit better. I wouldn't recommend picking him up unless he gets a fair bit cheaper. At this stage, I'd hold long term or sell right now if you're going to sell at all.
Very fair. I forgot about his 43 as well. So he's got 3 scores under 50 in his last 3. So yeah, not ideal. Some people thought, thinking of going straight up to a top gun. I completely understand that. There's also the chance you just go straight to Brailey, or you just bring Brailey in as a secondary hooker as well. KO Weeks, he's 223. He starts his money making the last 2 weeks. So 27 brought him back to a normal break even. 29 brings him up to a lower break even with that try. But the minutes there, they're just too low, aren't they?
Yeah, like every now and then you will get a bench utility that goes over for a try and scores 30 and 15 points because of that attacking stats. But 15 minutes is not somebody that you want to bring into your team. You can't rely on more than 10 or 15 points a week from that. He's not a buy until he's in the starting side.
Definitely. And Schuss is back as well, and they've got Johns in front of him. All right, Eli Katoa, would you just be holding him this week after his sort of first really low score of the year?
Yeah, he hasn't even scored a try yet, I don't think, and he's been averaging 50. What has he got? 39, 63, 58, 59, 35, and with a couple of missed tackles last week. So he's fine. He's getting close to his peak. He'll probably get close to 700, I'd say, but he might turn out to be a keeper. I mean, before last week, he looked like a keeper in all seriousness. So once he gets a little bit of attacking and potentially a try, he could be scoring you a 70.
For sure. I think Hughesy back helps him as well. So there's other issues in our sides at the moment other than Eli Katoa. Tyrell Sloan, he obviously is in your side. If you didn't own him, like myself, would you be looking to shore up your wing fullback position with him or our next guy on the list, Hayes Perham?
Oh, I wouldn't go Sloan now. It's been very stressful owning him because of the way he scores, and we've seen in the past that he can score a try and still score 15, 20. Like we saw a 27 from him that was boosted by a turnover tackle and a try saver in round 4, and he was like on 6 points at half time last week until he got moving in the second half. Yeah. At 400k, you'd now want him to get to mid 500s, which it's sort of approaching that consistent 40-45 average, which I really don't think you can rely on for Sloan. I would go for somebody in a better team with a bit more attack, like Hayes Perham.
Yeah, I suppose the good thing with him coming up, they got Titans, Canberra, before they got the Roosters, so probably does all right the next few weeks still, but still could have like a 15 or 20 in his game over the next few as well and just really destroy your money-making potential. So, yeah, hold if you own. Don't buy, I think. With there's better options that are probably have to pay up a little bit, 100k or so, but that's fine. Joey Manu, 672. We're just waiting with him with a big break even, or just slot him in now thinking he could score 70 or 80 at fullback this week.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's got a very handy centre wing fullback duel, and he won't play Origin, but he doesn't play round 13, which is probably why I wouldn't rush to get him in straight away. He hasn't scored well at centre yet. And the Roosters weren't that great before their bye. They came out firing, so potentially he could go better even when he is back to centre. But we do know and love Joey Manu at fullback, so I think he's got a break even about 70. He could get close to that. It's just that he won't be as consistent as a forward, somebody like Jack Bird if he keeps that spot. And he's 70k more. I probably wouldn't jump on him at the moment.
Yeah, I'm with you there for sure. And that it is an awkward one because they go round 13 is their buy, then round 19. So he misses those two big buys where you'd probably want him. So he's not as an attractive buy this year as he was last. I was picking him up round 5, 6, 7 the last 2 years, and it's worked out great. But as you said, very expensive, and we can probably get him a bit cheaper next week or through the buy period, maybe in round 14 or something like that. Could be the play, or even just round 17 there. Hayes Perham, would you look at him or no? 449, a bit more expensive.
He is somebody who I would look at more than Sloan. He's a bit of a funny price now, though. It's 449k, 150k more than that. He's pushing up close to 600. And he has been scoring consistent 40s, which is really good, but I don't think he's going to be a massive moneymaker. He'll be a consistent scorer, but he's still not quite at keeper levels either. So he kind of doesn't fill either category really well. If you have him doing good things for you, you've made some money and he's keeping those bad scores away. But you really want to go up if you're going to spend some money in the wing fullback position at the moment, I think.
Okay, good call. I like that. I think I'll leave them both. Khaleesi Haas, a few people asked me about him this week here. He comes in for his first game of the year. Played some decent minutes for 2 games last year. We spoke about in the preseason. It's probably someone we could just wait on. If you got that starting edge spot, then yeah, potentially, right? But off the bench, no?
Yeah, he's a funny one because bench edges don't usually score well. The Haas name might give you some incentive, but unless you're Sean Blore and playing 50, 60 minutes off the bench every week, I really don't think a bench edge is a buy under any circumstances. Wait until he's playing instead of Stimpson, in my opinion.
Beautiful. And also, great call on Brendan Hands from last week, by the way. You were completely correct on that. the minutes were going to be there, but it's going to be low each and every week. And yeah, it worked out great. As you said, bench hookers and also bench edges, like you said, worked out perfectly. So good call on that one. I hope some people took your advice in that one. Okay, let's talk about Carl Pereira. Is he someone at a cheaper wing fullback price that you would get in as a moneymaker? And would you even play him if you put him in?
It's quite an interesting option. I think you definitely can buy him this week because the Dragons haven't been as bad as we thought they might be, but they're still on the weaker side, and the Titans can definitely give him a couple of tries, and maybe he scores another 40 or 50 this week and makes stacks of money. I think he's going to kick off his price rises very well. Maybe after this week you wouldn't play him in your 17 consistently, but I think he can make you that money.
Definitely. Yeah, Broncos, that game worries me. I reckon he can get under 10 for sure again in that one. So, it's this week or never, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. All right, a few more to go, guys. 3 left. We've got Matt Doorey. Is he just a clear sell?
I think so. I mean, his break-even's back up a little bit like Cartwright, except he's not going to score as well, and he's, hasn't got the ceiling you want to play him in your starting 13. I think you just use that money and upgrade or make 100k by trading to Nikorima.
Beautiful. He made a bit for us. He did a job, and he's out of the side now, so that's that. Shawnee Johnson, just a little bit of an appreciation, 30 seconds from you here, Lockie, on Shawnee J.
It was so good to watch that game and watch him outscore all the people who brought in Hines before the bye, and he outscored them by 20 points at a much cheaper price. And he's absolutely gunned it this year. He's looking like the Sean Johnson of old. Maybe he's not gonna step 45 degrees and go through to the try line, but he's got a mature head and a really directed attack through him, putting people through holes and occasionally going through himself. I really, really am happy with him as an owner.
Yeah, I'm so impressed defensively for him as well. That's been the biggest thing. Over the last 4 weeks there, he's missed 3 tackles, so that's incredible. And they're actually playing pretty well. So the guys are running terrific lines off him too, like Nikorima and Curran on the weekend, both running just terrific hard straight lines to help him get some tries as well. So big kick meters, tackling well. Like even just that himself, he's getting sort of 40 plus points just in the kick meters and the tackles. So Shawnee J, he's gone up a lot, but still, would you buy him this week? There's a lot of people but there's people also looking to straight swap like Moses and Sammy Walker and these guys to him. You wouldn't do that, right?
It's very tempting, but I don't think I would. I've had people also say, I think I picked the wrong one. Do I trade Reynolds to Sean Johnson?
Yeah.
I'd say probably not. Look, Reynolds, Moses, and Walker can all kick big meters, can all do a bit of tackling and give you those attacking stats. They can do the same thing as Johnson. It just might not have been that week. So Adam Reynolds' early season was doing really well, a little bit like what Sean Johnson's doing now. And he just, hasn't gone over for a try in the last week or two, and maybe he could do that this week.
Yeah, Johnson's stats are inflated the last 2 weeks. So, look, he can go back to 55s pretty comfortably, and that's what I think he will. And he's almost priced at that point anyway. So, yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. If you missed out on him, get him in another way. Like if you've got a fair bit of cash in the bank, you can go like a 600k guy to him. But other than that, I think you just have to leave him out. And the last one to finish on, just Carl Lawton. He's got a negative break-even this week. Scored that 56 at hooker. He's coming off the bench. Is he another guy you want to avoid with probably low minutes?
Yeah, he's probably an avoid in my books. I'm finding it a little bit tough to know where he plays because he can play hooker, he can play edge, he can play middle. So it's going to be hard to know exactly what his role and minutes are going to be this week. I still don't think they're going to be worthy of a buy long term, though. He'll make money this week with his low break even, but going forwards, probably not.
Definitely. All right, Scoop, that's it for this one. We're going to get back in the top 1,000 for the first time this year.
I think so. We had 3 weeks of utter chaos and carnage, and people with the well-built teams are coming through strongly now. I'm hoping to see both of us win 3 digits this week.
Beautiful. And no Nico Hines for both of us, which I think is going to help. Not super highly owned, but definitely enough people that own Nico for us to have a nice upgrade in rankings this week. Good luck this week, everyone. I hope you go really well. See you later.